Pew pew pew. No, that's a wrong movie. All right, welcome back to the Wages of Cinema. I don't know why I'm emphasizing every word.
You're putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yes. Yeah. Welcome back. I'm Jack, and we are doing this once again. It's been a little while, but we're happy to be talking about a new big movie, probably the big movie. And so let's round off. Who else is here?
Trash Panda Corey.
Trash Panda Corey. And who else is here?
Material Opticon Matt.
Yeah, slung in all the way from Sparta, New Jersey. If you haven't guessed now, and of course you can see the title of the this episode, we're talking about Spider-Man, and specifically Brand New Day.
Hi, my name is Peter Parker. I have something to tell you that's gonna sound crazy. But it's the truth.
The fourth movie in the Tom Holland Spider Webverse, and I've lost count of how many Spider-Man movies there are, haven't you?
Okay, I can actually do this. There's 3 Raimis.
Yes.
2 of the misbegotten Andrew Garfield ones.
Yes.
That's 5. 2 Into the Spider-Verse movies.
Mm-hmm.
4 Marvel movies.
Yeah, and well, if you also count the 2 Avengers movies that he's in.
Okay, so 13, if you count them. 11
I guess. Am I missing one?
Civil War.
Oh,
yeah,
how do we forget Civil War? That's
I should remember that's my favorite.
That's
Marvel
his introduction, yeah. But this whole new movie that we got now, first Spider-Man, it's also like Christopher Walken, Spider-Man. He's not in this. He could have been, but this is the first movie 4.5 years. The premise, if you haven't seen the trailer, it's following up from the events of No Way Home, and you can't really describe what the movie is without mentioning the ending of that movie, where Peter, demands that everyone forget that anyone who knew that Spider-Man was Peter Parker, which was everybody, now forgets that he was Peter Parker. Now he's just Spider-Man. And it's interesting how they show that, too. Like, they show the passage of time. But anyway, sorry.
Let's do a brief, very brief, what do we recommend the movie? And then everyone's going to see this movie. We can jump into spoilers pretty fast.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. So I would gigantic, big, organic web shooter thumbs up.
Yes.
My web shooters are going all over the place for this movie. I was a big fan of Brand New Day. This might be recency bias, but maybe my favorite of the Holland movies.
Yeah,
pretty high up there at least.
I love this movie. I thought it was excellent. There are a few minor things, like story things, that I thought were maybe a little, under-resolved.
Yeah. But
the human drama and the character work in the movie is excellent. So I would highly recommend it. And before you give your opinion, Matt, can I ask you something that we were asking Andrew when you were in the bathroom?
Yeah.
If you were a Spider-Man yourself, would you prefer to have the organic web shooters or the mechanical ones?
Organic.
I'd prefer organic too, and Jack said he'd prefer organic.
Yeah.
And then Andrew was like, "No, I want to have to manufacture them." And I'm like, "That's stupid. If they're organic, you have access to them 100% of the time."
Well, I love Andrew, and unfortunately, I wish he could have been on this episode, but he's not. But Andrew's also somebody who spends many hours constructing, like a whole fleet of miniatures and things, and I feel like maybe he has a different craftsman sense. Not that you don't too, Matt, but I don't know. It's, again, I didn't know when I first saw the Tobey Maguire, Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Again, my knowledge of Spider-Man was a little too dim at the time, and I didn't know that Spider-Man had the different kind of web shooters. It just made sense on a narrative level, even in that movie, Yeah, of course, yes. Web shooters come out of him. That's what happens. Literally, he does the little heavy metal thing at one point. But the fact that becomes a story beat, a major story point that drives a lot of his existential crisis, I think, is really handled well, especially because he has seen it. He even mentions the fact that he had a reference point with Tobey Maguire from the last movie. But yeah, no, I would prefer organic web shooters, even though I could see how if you weren't used to that from the beginning, it would be a bit of an adjustment.
Yeah, so what was your overall takeaway of the movie?
It was a lot better than I thought it would be, because I had many conceptual issues with the movie before I saw it that are still kind of lingering as, like, if you're a fan of the source material, there's things that are going on that you're going to be like, well, why did they do this? This is a huge missed opportunity, but then the stuff that they did do, they did well, so it just kind of...
So in other words, it worked as a movie.
Yeah, it worked as a movie, yeah.
Like, it's funny, too, because I know what you're saying. I mean, I have, by this point now, unlike, years past, I've ingested a bit more Spider-Man in comic form, and I could see, like, that they're juggling a lot of different balls in the air with a lot of characters, but that's, in a way, actually what worked for me, because I liked having, like, Spider-Man and Peter Parker having to interact with all of these other characters, and it was handled I think fairly organically. Like, it wasn't so much shoved in, with maybe one exception, but even then I didn't mind that character so much because the person still served a story function.
Yeah, I think that it's like a double-edged sword, because they do integrate the guest stars very well in this one, but by that point, it also means that the stuff that specifically Spider-Man is kind of falls by the wayside to make room for the other MCU connections. You're not actually getting like a pure, like, or a more developed Spider-Man story per se that includes more of the Spider-Man mythos stuff. That just sort of is Easter eggs.
So what would be an example of something you're talking about that you would have liked to see in the movie that was not in the movie?
Okay, so...
Spoilers! We should...
Yeah, let's get into spoilers. We're shooting our spoiler web swingers at you. Now your eyes are completely covered, and when you pull them back...
Hulk? What are you doing here?
You think you're the only superhero to hear about Doc Ock's plan? Let's move in before she strikes, Spidey.
I know you're super strong, big guy, but we're gonna have to be light on our feet to surprise Doc Ock, okay?
I can tiptoe too. Ta-da!
Great, just follow my lead.
Okay, so there's a few different things. So first of all is that there's no J. Jonah Jameson in this movie, so it's not a valid Spider-Man film. And it's crazy because everything is all glazing Spider-Man, even though he's been involved with some like crazy reckless endangerment when he gets the black eye stuff. And you'd think that this would be a golden opportunity to bring J. Jonah Jameson and say like, yeah, Spider-Man, he still sucks. And like, just as like a throwaway thing, because I don't know, he's my favorite supporting character for Spider-Man, who makes Peter Parker much more interesting by contrast, but the MCU has refused to make him more than a one-note Alex Jones parody, which really does a disservice to the character. But then also, J. Jonah Jameson has a connection to Scorpion in the comics, which they don't exploit. And also, Scorpion, one of my favorite B-tier Spider-Man villains, only has 3 scenes in this. And I expected him to only have 3 scenes based on, like, the trailers, so I wasn't like expecting more, but it's like he's a cool character if you do him right, and then they just kind of like he's just kind of there.
He's more of a foil for Spider-Man in a very important scene, I would say. But and also you could say also if you are like a huge Scorpion fan, in one of those scenes, he technically isn't even fully Scorpion, because of a reason that we're dancing around and we'll get to. But I don't know. I would push back in one way that I think if you did have J. Jonah Jameson here, it would start to get a little too overstuffed.
Yeah, but then you don't have to have the Hulk and the Punisher in them. I don't like the Hulk and the Punisher, so screw them. Anyhow,
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, if you see the trailer, Punisher, Hulk, they're big characters in the movie.
Then also he's got the crazy mutating DNA with spider stuff. One big thing in the comics is that Spider-Man at one point grows 4 extra arms, and I thought they were going to lead up to that. And Tom Holland does not grow 4 extra arms. That is such a disappointment. Like I was like, they didn't play it off. It's like basically they just.
You mean pay it off?
Yeah, then it paid off.
Oh.
And then
Okay. I don't know.
I say this with love. I'm glad the things that you wanted to see in the movie are not in the movie.
I was gonna say,
I don't think they would have fit tonally with what the movie was going for.
He should be a hideous mutant freak with no friends.
But that's how he feels.
Oh, feelings.
Yeah,
Not good enough.
the movie is for me. Actually, I know we were talking a little bit about this after the movie, Corey. I appreciate when Spider-Man embraces big, bold feelings. And I feel like, for me, this actually harkened back, in some ways, even more than the other Holland Spider-Man movies, maybe a little more back to the Raimi Spider-Man movies, of having big feelings.
Yes, we loved the feelings. I think that's this movie's greatest weapon, is that, and I think one thing that helps as well is I think all of the Holland Spider-Man movies are very good, and I think one thing this movie benefits from is the prior 3 movies are so strong, you've built up enough of a relationship with the characters that you really, really feel for Peter Parker.
This is a strange thing to say. I almost felt like watching this movie, like all the other Holland Spider-Man movies were one movie, and this was the first. Even though this is Spider-Man 4, it felt like Spider-Man 2.
In a way, yeah, because they sort of made the first 3 movies like a really, really long origin.
Yeah, very long origin, and now we're getting like, the 4 years after, 4.5 years after. Oh, that's a small thing, but like, they show Aunt May's gravesite, and the date they show is 2024. So No Way Home takes place in 2024. Is this now in 2028? 2029? I don't know what the years are.
The MCU has been 5 years into the future since Endgame.
But in Endgame but then...
Remember there's a 5-year gap where nothing happens and then they start doing stuff again?
Okay, so No Way Home, it takes place after the 5 years. Okay. Now I'm carrying the one, alright. It's just funny to think of this movie in the future, and...
we will spend the rest of our lives.
Indeed we will. I mean, for me, I get what you're saying, Matt. I think if you did see those things in the comic and were hoping for some extra weirdness, I think they reserve that more for the concept of what the Jean Grey does in the movie, because that I think itself is such a heady thing to see. I think that, I don't know. Maybe you could have worked in 4 arms at some point, but I think to have that ongoing, that would have become its own story thread, and that might have also been something else the movie would have to hold up narratively.
Yeah, I think it's just that the crazy Spider-Man DNA and growing the web shooters and the black eyes. It's just kind of I don't know, set dressing to basically make the inhibitor chip just so that they get it on the Jean Grey at the end. It's a lot of, it doesn't feel really like they did it to logical conclusion that it would go.
Oh no, well once they that's the other thing we didn't mention, that what happens is in order to control this new developing power for Peter, he with some assistance from Bruce Banner creates an inhibitor chip that he can put on himself and level off his arachnid levels. It's almost like maybe an analogy for estrogen, testosterone. It's like he, I wonder what Pete Hegseth would make of this movie.
Oh, God.
About, you gotta raise up your testosterone, man. But what I was getting to, though, is that, it is a little bit of setting that up for sure. But I think that once they introduced the inhibitor chip, to me, that felt like, oh, this is, you're going to have, I wonder if you're going to have this now for other movies too.
I did feel like the whole Peter, is becoming this kind of, different type of mutant. And, he's having these changes in his powers, not only changes in terms of physical manifestation, but there's a mental and psychological change as well. I did want, I don't know, just a little more like resolution of that plot point, like a little more explanation or resolution.
I would say that I think that is one problem I do have with the movie, is that when they do resolve what happens to Peter, I mean, Andrew actually leaned over to me and did like the Matrix, he's the one. Like when finally, somehow, some way, Peter Parker manages to level off the levels. I'm not phrasing it right, but he manages to do it without needing the inhibitor chip. And I'm just like, okay, I guess movie, that's an explanation, but that's not enough for me.
It didn't seem like he really needed the inhibitor chip to begin with. It was just like a problem that he like overemphasized in his mind instead of just acclimating to like the power shift. So that's
I guess because he was so isolated and alone, and one of the things I think this movie does very well is it does a great job handling, as Jack mentioned in the intro, the burden he has to carry now that, he cast like the amnesia spell on the world. And he's now so alone.
Yeah, so alone. So alone!
But I think this movie really did a great job of dramatizing his isolation and his yearning.
Yeah, like all those moments when he first sees Ned again in that like cafe or convenience store or whatever. It's like those are the kind of moments I love in these movies, when he's just kind of staring at MJ and Ned, and for me that's he's almost weird in a way, like there enough, like, and he's just. But he has that isolation all the time. I mean, I'm not saying anything new to people who know what Spider-Man's about. But, sorry.
I'm just saying that it's kind of like this movie is trying to make a purse out of a sow's ear. Wait, silk purse from a sow's ear in a way because...
Silk purse from a sow's ear. I'm not sure if I've heard that expression.
Yeah, I've heard it before. It's like you're trying to make like something out of nothing.
Okay.
Because basically, if you remember back to... No Way Home, the underlying reason for the big magic spell at the end is because Sony and Marvel reached the end of their collaboration, so they were thinking, we're not going to do any more Spidey, so we're going to have to need a reason for there to be an end to Spidey in the MCU, so we're going to just do big memory erase, and they went to like the most biggest thing that they could do, but of course Spidey is super popular, so it made tons and tons of money, so of course it's like, oh, we'll renegotiate and do more Spidey movies. So now this is them kind of trying to roll it back, and it's like, oh, kind of, let's sort of, sorry, went too far, let's kind of maybe walk some things out. But not they didn't magically erase it, but it still felt like, oh, man, we kind of have to like bring things back instead of, I don't know.
So did you not emotionally connect to his isolation in the movie?
I mean, I did, because Tom Holland's a good actor, but a lot of the things in Spider-Man, I feel like a lot of self-inflicted suffering, and so
I don't know if I'd call it self-inflicted. It's just, what's the part of being a hero? You have to sacrifice your entire life and everything that you want.
No, because they keep telling you don't do that. You need a good work-life balance.
But that's also why Frank Castle has such an important role in the movie too, because he calls him on his bullshit. Like, he directly tells Spider-Man, like, you're a coward. Like, you're just like hiding in yourself. And again, that's his perspective, but it raises a question for the audience, like, if you are, like, acting like you don't care about people, but you do, like, why are you isolating yourself?
Yeah, I know you said you don't like the Punisher, but he was the Punisher within the movie was kind of voicing your attitude when he tells Peter, I'm isolated because my family's dead.
Yeah,
You
this
have
isn't a
people-
lifestyle. This is like my sentence.
No, I mean, granted,
No, granted,
Spider-Man's
he's-
family
he's
is
dead
dead
too.
too. But
But he has a different reaction to it, is the thing. Like,
Yeah,
he's
he-
not going out there to kill people.
Right, which is why the Punisher is a terrible, terrible mentor.
But that's why that's so compelling
think-
in this movie.
I think in this movie, MJ and Ned are kind of like standing in for family. I mean, the movie
Yeah.
does address the death of Aunt May. It's not that like it's not addressed in the movie at all. But Punisher's trying to make the connection that like you voluntarily removed yourself from Ned and MJ's life. I didn't voluntarily remove myself from my family's life. They were murdered. So
Yeah, I mean, I know what you were saying about, like, No Way Home being, like, the end for outside the movie reasons involving deals and studios. But I think now taking that aside and looking at this movie unto itself, I think it managed to justify it more than I could have expected it to. At least in terms of what I usually like to see in Spider-Man stories, especially when you have a premise that, you know, literally is taking, you know, Peter Parker away from, you know, characters that he's normally fully connected with.
see, I personally, I blow really hot and cold on the Punisher. Sometimes I like him and sometimes I just find him annoying. But I thought he was well used in this movie.
Yeah.
And I also thought this movie did a good job of wrestling with the why superheroes shouldn't kill people question, which sometimes I think superhero movies handle really poorly. Like, we didn't do a podcast about it, but we saw the Supergirl movie. You liked it more than, like, Jack and I did. I hated the Supergirl movie. I thought it was garbage. And that movie did an absolutely horrendous job dealing with the whole, like, no, we're heroes and heroes don't kill. This movie actually kind of, like, I feel like if you're kind of anti, like, the Punisher ethos, I think this movie actually made a strong counter-argument to the, like, this is why you shouldn't kill
Yeah,
people.
in fact, I would even say, like, I thought Punisher was probably better used here than even in, was it Daredevil Season 2?
He wasn't in Daredevil season.
He was
two.
in
Well,
season
oh,
one.
no, what, Season 1? Well, he was in one of them,
He was
right?
the first season.
First season, excuse me, yeah. Well, he was better used in this movie than
Now,
Daredevil.
when we're saying, we're talking about the new Daredevil. We're saying Daredevil.
Sorry. Well, wait, no, wasn't he in the, like, older version of the show?
Yeah,
Yes.
but not in. He was in season 2
He
of the
was in
older one.
season 2, first Daredevil, and then
Season
season 1.
one.
Okay, that's what I was trying
See,
to reference.
I, for instance, I hated Daredevil, and I hated Punisher and Daredevil Born Again. I thought he was very badly used in that. I
Yeah.
just, like, get off my screen.
Yeah.
But I
I
thought he
was
was
mean.
very well used in this.
Yeah, I did distinguish that. I'm sorry about that. But also, too, I think when you were, again, Tom Holland and John Bernthal, I think also really worked well as actors in these roles as well. I don't know if I have given them their due enough. And I know, again, John Bernthal's been playing this role for years, but I think having them as this unlikely buddy team, I think helped to add, like, this spiky, dark humor to the movie that I think it needed, because otherwise it actually isn't as funny as some of the other movies. I would say, like, this isn't as funny as maybe Far From Home. Like, that's one thing I would maybe mark against it. But again, I liked all the actors in it, though. That's a big thing. And we haven't even touched on the character that I had no idea was going to be in this, even though I should have, which is Jean Grey, Sadie Sink.
Yeah.
Did you have a sense that it was going to be Jean Grey?
Yeah, it was one of the worst kept secrets. But
Oh, we didn't know.
I had no idea.
really,
No, I thought she was going to be some, like, B-tier, like, Spider-Man villain I didn't know about.
We're both pretty terminally online, and neither of us knew.
really?
Was it because of the red hair?
Well, because of the red hair, and like B, because whenever someone would ask her a question about Jean Grey, she'd be like, "Oh yeah, Jean Grey, she's a real cool character. Yeah, okay, nice." But,
So she did not keep the secret.
no, she did
well.
keep the secret. She was very good at not directly saying, "Yeah, I'm Jean Grey," but
Which
people kept
made
hounding
you
her about-
realize.
Yes. Because he was.
Yeah.
We didn't know. So I would say, for me, both the way they handled the revelation was good. I really enjoyed this take on Jean Grey. The only thing, I had a little bit of a question, and I actually thought I could maybe direct this question to you. In the beginning of the movie, before we know it's Jean Grey, it feels like she has a specific vendetta against Peter. That's kind of how I read the beginning of the movie.
See, I didn't read that at
No,
all. Why would you read that as against Peter?
She kept attacking the damage control buildings.
But she was also really into, like, taunting him, and...
But she didn't know that, Spider-Man was Peter Parker at that point. She knew. She found that out later.
But it seemed to me like
She's
in the
into taunting
beginning,
Spider-Man, and of course,
she was
who
more
isn't into that?
Spider-Man focused than, like, damage control focused, which I assumed was, like, a deliberate misdirect. So we don't think, like, who... But once we know she's Jean Grey, we realize that, like, she's actually, like, no particular interest in Spider-Man whatsoever. She's just interested in damage control.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
I wasn't... So it... I wondered if it maybe, like, they misdirected a little too much just to keep, like, the secret. But I really, on the whole, I really liked this take on Jean Grey in this movie.
Yeah, me too. Like, I really... I mean... Again, this shows my ignorance in comic stuff. I didn't realize that she had a sister.
She does.
She does,
Yes.
yeah. That's adds a lot of pathos, I think.
Yeah.
That she has this, again, orphans. always always have the foster kids and orphans, and the fact that she's left in this terrible situation. And I love, like, a good villain or a villain, antagonist, that not only do you fully understand their perspective, you actually kind of get on their side.
Yeah.
Like, there were points in this movie I found myself rooting for her.
Yeah.
I don't know if you felt that.
Oh, yeah,
bit.
yeah. But that's, like, another kind of thing, like I was saying, because it's basically a stealth X-Men movie, but it's, like, so...
Sneakily, so.
Yeah.
But you gotta say, like, why I didn't have a problem with that is, again, the same reason the Punisher and Hulk are in this. Like, it's, you can bring in other characters from other universes, and in a way, this might even be a little more organic than some other MCU movies where they do, like, here's Charlize Theron, and I'm even literally wearing a Multiverse of Madness shirt, but that I knew. It's fun. I watched an interview with Charlize, because there was an interview with Charlize Theron, Lupita Nyong'o, and Zendaya, and the person was like, well, you're all in the MCU, and Charlize Theron was like, oh, I'm not really in it.
Which, like, I would agree, actually. I would agree, honestly.
Which is crazy, because Clea is a major part of Doctor Strange's lore, and she's just the end credit thing.
Yeah.
But
anyway, what are you going to say about how they handled her?
Well, I know, because it's hard to say, because, like, they sort of did it like the reverse of the comics, because usually Jean Grey starts off being telekinetic, and then she develops her telepathy later on when her psychic blocks are taken out, whereas this one, she starts off just being telepathic and basically being the Shadow King, and then, like, at the end, she's like, oh, I have some telekinesis now.
Well, it seemed like, in a way, I thought maybe that was meant to maybe slightly mirror Peter in a way. Like, you're seeing both characters suddenly develop these almost traumatically powerful new things.
Yeah, and just, like, kind of, like, because the way the MCU has been doing mutants has been just kind of weird, because they didn't used to have any mutants, because
Right.
Fox had the rights
Right.
to X-Men, but now that's been relaxed, then they just sort of, like, have, like, mutants, but they're not really kind of, like, coming out and saying, yeah, we have X-Men level mutants things, but they're just there, kind of like in Ms. Marvel and Wonder Man, and then so it's sort of like it's sort of like feels like they should just wait until they can fully come out after Secret Wars and like, yeah, we have real X mutants instead of trying to sneak them in.
Well, I would actually, the thing I would push back on that is I'm glad that they didn't, like, I was worried with the X-Men, they were just going to introduce them all at once, and it would just be like, here's the full platter, here are all the characters. In this, it's just, here's one character who's not even really an X-Man yet, but we're seeing, like, and I think it's supposed to be Jean Grey when she's younger than she normally is in the comics, right?
I mean, depends when you start being Jean Grey, because she starts off as a teenager in, like, 1963.
Fair. All right.
See,
I guess that makes sense.
I think this still felt like a Spider-Man movie. It just felt like a Spider-Man movie that had a character from the X-Men.
And the thing is, like I said, it also worked because just in terms of the characterizations, it ends up dovetailing very well with what Peter was going through the whole time in terms of, like, isolation and bitterness and, like, am I, can I take care of the person who is closest to me? And for Jean Grey, that is, a tragedy and, almost a failure on her part. And, what her reaction is, let me just take everything down.
Well, you're talking, too, about how the characters, like, parallel each other in terms of how their powers develop over the course of the movie. And how, like, they're struggling to contain their powers, the dark side of their powers. I also thought it was a nice parallel connecting her feelings about failing to protect her sister. Even though she did nothing wrong, her sister even mind controls her so she can't, like, chase after her.
Yes.
With Peter's feeling of responsibility about the death of Aunt May.
Yes.
And, it culminates in that great scene near the end where she's finally able to enter his mind.
Yeah.
And she has a conversation with Aunt May.
Yeah.
Didn't you find it, like, a bit like Stranger Things, how they presented Jean Grey?
Well,
aside from the obvious,
only time I thought that was, like, the scene where she's running in slow-mo. Because we didn't watch the last 2 seasons of Stranger Things. We checked out after season 3. But I have watched very lengthy YouTube commentaries on seasons 4 and 5 of Stranger Things. So I've seen that, like, clip of, like, running up that hill, like, 10 times probably. But since I didn't finish the show, and since I haven't watched an episode of the show in, like, 7 years, the only time I thought Stranger Things was literally, like, in her running scene.
You know what? Now that you mention it, I didn't think to connect it, but yeah, when she's, like, locked in and, like, strapped to the chair, it is a bit Stranger Things, except if it was 11 instead of her character.
And it said V-Max, and her name is Max in the show.
I didn't think of that. Yeah, I mean, that was something that I thought they handled with delicious irony for me in the movie, because they mention this a number of times. It's like, do you know anything about VMAX? No, not really. Oh, do you? What's VMAX? Where's the VMAX? And then when it finally, she literally looks up and sees on this ventilator the words Ventmax.
Yeah.
And my heart just sank, like, that's what this was about. Great. See, that's where good setup and payoff.
Oh, yeah. When we were chatting before,
Before you came back. Oh, no.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah.
When we were chatting at dinner before we were recording the podcast, I mentioned Yelena has a small role in this movie where she's great as usual. I always enjoy seeing that character. But she takes her meetings in her office, which is a Russian bath. And Spider-Man has to strip down to see her to get into the bath. He still wears his mask, but he strips down to basically his underwear. And she says, at the end, I can recognize you by your belly button. And I said I kept expecting that to come back in the movie in some fashion.
It should have.
But it didn't. It was just a cute line.
Yeah. And actually, it's, when I mentioned earlier, like, one exception, maybe someone who was kind of jammed into the movie, like, I almost thought for a second maybe she was, but on the other hand, I enjoy seeing her. And yeah, she has a nice couple of scenes in this. Yeah, I'm trying. I mean, the action's really good. I really enjoyed Hulk in this too. I'm guessing you didn't enjoy Hulk in this.
I mean, it was better than I could have happened. So I mean, it was like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. I'm someone who usually just finds Hulk annoying, but this was literally the best use of, like, angsty Hulk, I thought, in the entire MCU.
Well, because he's not, like, a big main dish. He's a garnish. Like,
Yeah.
I think the first Avengers movie and this... Actually, no, I enjoy him a lot in Endgame, too. But, like, yeah, this is one of the better uses of him because he's there almost as a setup and payoff more than anything because of the inhibitor.
Well, I like it. I love him in Endgame because in Endgame he's like, I've controlled the Hulk. I've made peace with the Hulk. I'm not Hulk anymore. He's like in the Hulk body, but he doesn't have the Hulk personality.
Yeah.
Normally, in other MCU movies, I have actually found him wrestling with his dark pain just kind of tedious. Even though obviously Mark Ruffalo is a very good actor, but this movie, I think you're right, because it's only like maybe like 2 scenes, really. Very well done. Very effective deployment of the Hulk.
Yeah. I mean, I will say there is almost there is one shot. There are a couple of shots in that sequence where, again, it's Spider-Man and Punisher, a little bit more so Spider-Man, like facing off against the Hulk. There was one shot that did almost feel like a gratuitous, like, splash panel page in a comic book. Do you know what I'm talking about, Matt?
I mean, I think that I like the gratuitous splash pages.
No, I do too. But it was just almost funny to me to see, like, how they created that and again, I know that's not the first time they do this in one of these movies, but it almost, I think because a lot of the movie is a little more, dramatically at a different keel, to have those, like, big moments was maybe slightly jarring for me. But I enjoyed it.
They had a bunch of them in the movie.
They did. I mean, also Spider-Man and the Hand, and of course, MJ falling off the building, and suddenly she snaps out of being controlled by Jean Grey, and also that's a whole excellent bit of audience manipulation when you think, like, they're finally connecting on this level and, have this kiss, and it's like Zendaya gets to act a little differently than she always does in these movies.
Yeah, I actually thought maybe the power of love would cure her amnesia.
No, it's the power of, like, secret handshakes.
Well, yeah, at the end, we know that, like, you're right, like, Ned and Peter reconnect through the power of friendship via handshake. But during the kiss, I actually thought, like, maybe their love is enough to overcome the amnesia. Because I told Jack, this is actually a very common trope in K-dramas, where characters have amnesia, but the power of love is able to overcome their
So
amnesia.
they really, in a lot of shows, they just have a kiss and suddenly they remember?
It's not necessarily a kiss, but there will be some memory loss. But they just love each other so deeply.
Do they? Is it through the power of the piggyback ride? There are a lot of piggyback rides in these shows. I know we're getting off track. But no. The other thing in the movie too is I mentioned this when we were eating after the movie. Like, I found even though the guy's a good actor, the Tremel Tillman is the kind of main guy that we see kind of running the show at Damage Control. And I know, again, it's a trope, but I found his character, like, as soon as you see him, it's like, oh yeah, he's bad news.
He's a little generic.
A little generic sauce.
Like, when he hired the Hand on, I was like, oh yeah, it's a red flag.
Yeah, very big red flag. And, like, how dismissive he is when, Peter mentions the VMAX and, he acts like he has no idea what he's talking about. Maybe he was genuine in that moment, but I don't think he was.
No, I think he was, because nobody saw
looking at that.
Label.
Maybe not, yeah. But, no, yeah, that's... He's not bad in the part. I don't want to make that, make it sound like that, but yeah, that was my one little quibble as well.
Yeah, that role, like, that position, it's very, like, been there, done that. But the movie has so much else going on.
I would have liked to have seen more Tombstone.
Yeah, I saw he popped up a little bit early on in the movie, right? Yeah.
They had him, and they had Boomerang, and Tarantula, and Ramrod.
Yeah, they had a lot of those kind of characters. Yeah, I mean, I would also say one thing that just surprised me overall was that, again, the director of this movie, Destin Daniel Cretton. Dang it, a lot of big syllables there. You know, his previous movie, Shang-Chi, and I forget, what did you think of Shang-Chi, Matt?
Didn't care for it.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
think
like
we were
it.
all kind of on the same page about that, and now it makes me wonder, like, was he really hamstrung during the making of that movie? Because here, it's like such a much richer, emotionally, thematically kind of movie.
Yeah, and when I think about, like, what a garbage climax in particular Shang-Chi had compared to how great the ending was. It's just like night and day.
Yeah, the action also was much clearer. And again, there's of course a lot of CGI in this too. I mean, there are times where you can tell, yeah, all right, that's not Tom Holland jumping, around the Hulk to try to get him, in that position in that scene. But yeah, even the CGI is better and the emotional connections were better.
Yeah, because in Shang-Chi, Tony Leung was the only character, like, I felt anything for at all. And I know Shang-Chi was, like, a very, very popular MCU movie amongst people who are not us.
Yes.
But I didn't like it. Outside of maybe, like, I remember I liked Awkwafina in the movie, and I liked Tony Leung in the movie. But beyond that, I didn't like it very much. And I thought Shang-Chi, like, gestured at things, like, character-wise, but didn't actually pay them off. Whereas this one, it's such a rich text emotionally. Huge upgrade.
It's an interesting thing to see, actually. The writers of these movies are pretty consistent. They're all written by, or at least maybe there are other writers, obviously, but Chris McKenna and Eric Summers are credited for all the Holland Spider-Man movies and, a real treasure, Lego Batman.
Lego Batman!
Yeah, apparently they wrote
Lego
that too.
Batman.
Yeah, and Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is fun. But yeah, it's interesting that, like, even, I guess, it's like, all right, if we are going to have to bring back the Spider-Man universe again because the last one made so much money, this one is obviously going to be maybe the biggest movie of the year, so it's like, how do you not make it? But, I do like that they have that consistency, and maybe you can tell that through the through lines.
I just realized that, like, maybe my heart is kind of closed to other Batman movies because I'm still carrying a torch for Lego Batman, which was so great.
I carry a torch for Joker in that movie.
Yeah.
Like, that might have one of my favorite Joker Batman scenes, like, ever. When, like, early on in the movie, like, Batman has that heart-to-heart with Joker, and it's just, like, the little Lego movements. Do we have any more thoughts about the movie? I think we've said a lot.
Yeah. All right.
Really, really good. I mean, are there any
Awesome.
Miscellaneous thoughts you had, Matt, we haven't talked about yet?
I don't know. I have plenty of miscellaneous thoughts, but I'll probably just put them in my blog.
Yes.
Read Matt's blog when it comes out.
Yeah, to make sure. And why don't you plug your blog, Matt? This would be a good time for that.
you can find the blog at mattvcatania.wordpress.com.
Yes, and you're going to see many a link, many things that probably will, again, direct you to a number of tidbits about behind the scenes, even, I'm sure, toys as well. You've probably looked into that. And yeah, guys, so thanks for listening to us here on The Wages of Cinema. Again, we haven't been here in a little bit. Sometimes we take off breaks a little, but our next time that you're going to hear us is going to be a pretty big episode. That's all I'm going to say. Let blah. It involves a filmmaker that you've heard of. That's all I'll say.
All right, so the Wages of Cinema is...
let's count off. I'm Jack.
I'm Trash Panda Corey.
I'm Matt.
And The Wages of Cinema is...
Hugs!
And falling into the trap that is your mind where you can't escape unless you connect with empathy. Good night, everybody.
Night.
I'm sorry, but you're in danger. What? I promised you that I would keep you safe. Please, you just have to trust me. Come on.
Fine.